I, good. Thank you.
Yeah, you can publish it if you like. I can just, if somebody's gonna watch it, I'll just let you know. My name is Kingsley Rosario Fernandes. My father is a superintendent, retired superintendent in the Mumbai Customs at the airport, and his father before him was also that. And I was supposed to be in the government, but I chose to be an artist. And
It's a good thing.
I would like to start 9/11 Truth Movement for Indian government officials because I think that it's time that we put pressure, real pressure, political pressure. This talking and just discussing things has gone on long enough. I think we figured out what the hell is going on.
Well, that's part of what tonight is about because there's so much that so many of my associates and friends in the alleged movement um, think they know, and I think I know something too. So we're not totally in agreement, and I'm very much evidentiary based. So I'm just kind of wondering how our conversation is going to go tonight, what it's going to focus on, for what you hope to gain from it.
I've just been reaching out to people. I'm actually interested in writing a documentary series. I was telling Richard about it. I still am trying to figure out what it's going to be, but I have an idea.
Richard, who?
Richard Gage.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
sorry,
making
Richard
sure.
Gage.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard
Because
Gage.
Richard and I have some fundamental, or at least one fundamental disagreement, which we'll cover in this conversation if you'd like. Only
Yeah, sure.
one.
Yeah. No, I I think that the event itself had technology that we don't know about. So it's really impossible to know exactly what happened. We're all kind of putting pieces together. Um, and it was the last analog um, false flag operation because they didn't anticipate YouTube. So it was done as an analog. It was the last analog false flag. You know, all other
Right.
false flag are digital. They're using disinformation as the first smoke screen. Disinformation is just
Absolutely. Yeah.
smoke.
Totally.
It's just smoke. It's a fog of war. You create fog and you conduct your operation inside it, and then you move away.
Well, the key is that it was a shock and awe event.
Yeah,
The three attacks, the three major visible attacks that we had on the twin towers and on the Pentagon. But there's so much more to it than just the strikes in New York and the attack on the Pentagon. And that's the stuff I'm interested in all that, but I'm fascinated with um, how the mechanics of this whole thing works. So that's been my focus. If that comes of any help to you at all in your research and studies.
well, look, I'll just give you my background. I grew up in a very small Catholic village called Bacardi. It's like Bacardi, but with a P. There's 7 villages, and mine was the village I grew up in was segregated away because the train tracks were built through the village system. So there was one village, and there's a train tracks, and there's 6 on the other side.
So
So my mom,
you're on one side of the tracks.
yeah, literally, literally. So I had to cross over the tracks to go to school. The
Yeah.
thing is, these Catholic villages were set up by the different colonial powers, and
Yes.
mine was set up by the Dutch. So
Yeah.
my mother's people are called East Indian, although we're on the west coast of India. So the East Indian people were people that worked for the Dutch East India Company, which is the first corporation on earth, right? So I've seen the effects of the first corporation on earth, and I'm really concerned that what has happened to my people, the East Indian people, will happen to 99% of the world's population by the end of the century. They will be dumbed down and enslaved,
Yeah.
and there will be one elite class, and they will have their own religion. Like Christopher Bolin keeps talking about, it's the Zionists and stuff like that. Like if you go high enough, you get to the Rothschilds. They
Uh,
happen to be in like Ashkenazi Jews, but I don't think they're actually following any religion. They're just
I
people.
am Ashkenazi Jew.
Yeah. So that's like you're not. So that's the thing. You're like it'll be very easy to lump you in with them and say, well, you're disinformation, Lawrence. You're
Yeah.
like the thing is, if you really look at it, Lawrence, it's just about money and power. It's
Yeah.
boys being boys. It's like
Well, of course, power control. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
go ahead.
I want to discuss also at some point spirituality and what that actually means.
Yeah.
I've spent the past 10 years deconstructing it in India. I took one class in anthropology and then I came to India. I was in the middle of my master's and my mother needed surgery. So she was like concerned that she'll die and like her son will be in America when she dies. All like just overly dramatic Indian
Yeah.
mother stuff. So I came to
Sorry.
India in 2011 towards the end. And my mother's surgery went well, but when I went to get my visa stamped, there was an issue where they needed more information or whatever, and then I didn't get my visa. I missed my semester, and I just said it's okay. I'm just going to stay in India. I owned a condo in San Francisco at the time. I did well for myself. I was there from the age of 19 to 29. I did well. I owned a condo, so I just rented the whole thing out, and I was like, I'm just going to stay back. And then I slowly just decided to stay back as I kept missing semesters, and I was like, I can't afford it, blah blah blah. And then I sold my condo when Trump became the president. I really thought that he would be a bad president. It turns out he was a good president. But I sold my condo, and then I reinvested everything. So I built this building. My dad and I built this building, and this place is called the Skydancer Ranch. It's named after George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch.
Cool.
George Lucas had Skywalker Ranch, and I built Skydancer Ranch because I worked with George Lucas's lead designer for a long time. I was her assistant. Her name was Carol Whitlatch. Anyway, I'm telling you all of that because this is a think tank, this place here, and I have the resources to do research. If you need anything from you, anyone in the 9/11 movement wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to just have any discussion because I have the time, and it's really cheap to hire people here because I'm earning in dollars and I'm paying people in rupees.
Okay.
I have a very small tech company in Oakland called Iogenesis. It's got a few problems at the moment. The CEO is an African American gentleman from California. And yeah, that's just my background. So we can discuss whatever you want to discuss, Lawrence. I'm fascinated. I think your girlfriend or the person you're in a relationship added me on Facebook. So
yes, I mentioned to her, and I gave her your URL, your Facebook URL.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is share a screen.
Yeah.
Because my work is mostly in images, pictures with a little bit of descriptive, and analytical stuff attached.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which one am I sharing? This one. I've got a lot on the desktop right now. There we go. Can you see the 9/11 synthesis?
Yeah.
Good. Now, what I can do, to accommodate you, there are, well, these two subjects are very related. There's a number of subjects, so anyone that you're interested in, the one that I'm, of course, most interested in is ground zero, because that's when I put the most research into.
With your permission, I'd like to take a few screenshots every now and then.
Oh, of course, and I'll hold the screen for you. So if I'll go into ground zero right now, and anything that we pass by, just tell me to stop, and you can grab a shot of it.
Okay, so what are we looking at? This is your own research?
Yes, this is my own research.
Okay, how long have you been doing this research?
9/11 synthesis probably been going on. I think I started 9/11 synthesis around 11 or 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's been built on. It's been added to. Nothing has actually been removed from it. It's been all additive.
Yeah.
So this is the cover page, and it covers, the philosophy, the stuff that I'm working from is, the essence is assembling the fragments and connecting the dots and putting all of the testimony and evidence together in a way that it coalesces and it correlates. It forms a viable scenario, in my opinion. So,
okay.
And then of course there's the idea of finally coming to a conclusion and reaching consensus. So that's what I'm working at with this, and hopefully more people will understand the work that I've done and be able to recognize the evidence. So I'm going to go right to ground zero and start running through it, give a presentation. And anytime you feel like stopping me, please do that, because I'll just stick with the images. And so this is the page.
Mm-hmm.
An image of this was one of the first things that I discovered that piqued my curiosity. It was a picture, I believe, of this cavity here on the left, but I'm not really sure because the details on all of them are, striations. A lot of the details, the physical details of the alteration of the bedrock in this area are very uh, uh, oriented. And I learned from a few geologist friends some terms. One of the things that we can look at is that this is Manhattan schist. This started out as being essentially flat bedrock. This area over here is what they excavated down to when they were putting in the slurry walls. That's a piece of the original topology. But the rest of this has been leveled because they were building on it and they wanted a level, first floor. This is one of the first images of the site that building number 4 stood upon, recognized by this, by the fact that there are 2 holes, and we'll look at the details of that later. There's one cavity here and one cavity here.
Mm-hmm.
These are the beginning stages of the demolition, or the excavation using demolition or chipping hammers, because there was a bedrock overhanging what we'll discover in a little while as we move on. But you can notice that all this has been newly fractured with this tool. All of this detail up here is newly exposed. But you can see as we move around that there are aged surfaces that were existing crevices, rifts in the bedrock. And this detail in particular is one of the most revealing to me, as it shows this surface down here, which is bright, crisp, clean, and shiny. And that's a result of pressure washing the areas in the cavity.
Okay. Can I stop you for a second?
Yes,
Lawrence,
you can.
What is the main point that you and Richard Gage disagree with? Because I'm trying to understand that. If I understand that, these slides will make better sense to me.
Okay,
because
absolutely.
I understand Richard. I've looked at everything that Richard's done, and I know him, know his work pretty well. So
I've met him and talked with him a number of times. I've communicated him with met numerous times on email and on Facebook Messenger. The disagreement that we have is that he touts the persistent subterranean, or the heat that was being generated from below where the buildings, Twin Towers, were built, and building number 7, since that's all he studied. He has correlated the use of thermite as being the source of the subterranean heat. And that's where our disagreement is. It's in what was the device, what is the device, what were the devices that produced all that subterranean heat.
You believe that it's something else that was there?
Yes, I believe it was something else that was there.
Like what, for example? Like what?
Well, I started out, the first time I saw this picture and this picture here, the first thing that came into my mind, and this is around 11 or 12 years ago, I said, oh shit, somebody set off a thermonuclear device in Manhattan. I then backpedaled because I knew that nuclear was a taboo subject in the 9/11 truth community, because a couple of Russian researchers had kind of muddied the waters by saying it was nuclear, but then giving an explanation that I found ridiculous.
Lawrence, I listen to a lot of content, and I just heard a video, I think a couple of days ago, by Christopher Bolin, where he said somebody contacted him, like a truck driver, from all the hundreds of trucks that were used to move all the metal. And
I read that, and you said, one truck? Give me a break.
Yeah, no, the thing is, Lawrence, we have to assume that the people that did this have put people within the 9/11 movement as disinformation
Yes.
points. We have to assume that there are agents. I have to assume there's a 0.1% chance that you are an agent. You have to
Yes.
assume that there's a 0.1% chance I'm an agent. We have to, like, it goes on and on and on. Like,
I totally concur.
yeah, I mean, you could be inside the CIA bunker right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could be. I could
Well,
be.
let me show you. Let me show you where I am, just so you get a clue.
I could be at Langley. I could be at Langley and just
You could
pretending
be.
that I'm in India. Yeah. So
So yes, I am not afraid that
yeah,
is if I allowed that to guide me, then I wouldn't be talking with anybody about anything.
yeah. I think they only whack people that have actual prosecutable evidence, like Captain Philip Marshall. They killed his whole family and his dogs and him because he used to fly for Barry Seal, and Barry Seal gave him some information, I think, and then Barry Seal was killed off before, but he got some information about some airport that was used.
Right.
And he was writing a book called A Lakefront Airport or some shit. So I think
Right.
that as long as we don't have information that can actually prosecute them, they're not going to whack us. And
Well, this is when you get down to it. I'm going to just cut to the chase because we haven't got that much time.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of these images that I have interpreted as being produced by extraordinarily high temperatures. The explanation, the official explanation by the people that produced the geological report and allowed the surveys to be in it, which is kind of interesting, was that this was all ice age erosion, what they call plunge pools and whirlpools. But they even in their conversation, in their paper, said we couldn't find any exit or entry point that would, and having a plunge pool requires head. It requires flow, high rate of flow, velocity, and pressure, along with hydrology is all good all by itself, but usually it would include some sort of an aggregate. But none of this really conforms to that, and it's all been. If it was, it would have been buried underground, and in my opinion, would have rendered the same surface type colors and textures as what I'm pointing at right over here, Kingsley.
yeah,
This is a fracture.
yeah,
This is, in my opinion, flow from a central heat point, and getting to we're going to just cut right to it. Okay, yeah, we're right to it now. These are the topographical surveys that were done after 9/11, the geotechnical drawings. Each one of these cavities is roughly 40 feet spheroid form in diameter. And here is the final, the really defining document, the really defining image right here, because it allows you to see what the original surface was. This is a surface this is what the surface looked like before 9/11 over here. There was a high point here and what they call a till-fill valley here, which you can see runs over this way. You can see all the details, but if you look at the details over here, they're totally different. And we're talking about granite. We're talking about Manhattan schist with areas of pegmatite, which is essentially granite metamorphic type rock. Again, this is the smoking gun right here. The difference between this survey right here, which I was able to use the locus marks in order to correlate the position, the street details, and both of these images here were placed using the street images as a foundation or as a general location. I mean, you can see some of the details over here, and we've got the larger image. You can see the lines over here, also similar lines over here, but you can also see that there are these little circles with pluses going through them. One is there, one is there. So they all locate very closely within a few meters. I've used my Mac Keynote for overlaying these images, so I was able to make them translucent and be able to see where I could line them up by changing their degrees of translucence until I could see all of these uh, locus points, all these little points correlate. I'll point them out over here. That's one of the points. And if you look at the two images, and I could send you the raw images so you'd be able to look at the differences. Okay, so this is, again, 40 feet deep and approximately 40 feet spheroid. This is a survey, so they didn't get the fine detail the way they did in the pictures as far as the shape goes, but it gives you a real good idea of the form and the locations. There's just an awful lot of corroborating evidence here, things that correlate. Richard Gage's presentation of the seismology right here was one of the key pieces of, call it evidence, talking about the events that occurred before the first plane struck, when around the time of the collapse of the South Tower and then the North Tower. And notice that these seismic events are up to 100 times scale compared to the events that occurred before the first plane struck. And there were other smaller explosive events closer to the surface. And these type of events here are generally accepted by seismologists as closer to surface and less powerful events. But when we get to events like this that occurred that are now 100 times the scale, rather than 10 times to be able to study them easier, there are these peak lines that are included, which created a 2.1 and a 2.3 magnitude seismic event in Manhattan on 9/11. And nobody that I know of, other than the Russians, may have addressed these as being evidentiary and been able to correlate them with underground explosions. So I'm so much into the evidence, not into the very,
Hey,
very much not into the. Go
could you
ahead.
go up? Could you go up a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Could you scroll up? You scroll too fast. There was an image I was interested in looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Okay, right there. Hold on. Right there. Just keep go back. Down.
Okay.
The
These.
one with no, the other ones down below. So the ones that with the explosion.
Oh, these are the lesser explosions.
Okay, no, just show me the illustration that's right below this one.
Oh, the illustrations. Okay, these are the different types of results that you get depending on the depth of the bursts. And this is
Okay.
yeah. This.
Oh, okay. I get it. I get what you're saying. So the last one on the right side is what happens in a nuclear explosion if it's buried really deep.
Yes,
It goes
yeah.
upwards.
Yes.
It goes upwards. Okay.
Yeah,
Can you go to
the
the next
fracture.
one?
Yeah.
Can you go? Can you scroll a little bit? I want to see the one below this one.
Okay.
Okay. Just hold on this for a second. So your hypothesis is there was a very small mini nuclear bomb somewhere below, and it was detonated, and that energy was sent upwards. Is that what you're saying? Because see,
Well,
if
some of it was sent upward, but what happens in an explosion like this, where a thermal device is detonated, the most important feature of this, strangely enough, is not the detonation itself, but the aftermath. What happens usually 12 to 15 seconds after an underground nuclear test in Nevada, and that would be the subsidence, the creation.
do you think that something like this could have been done in order to send a pressure explosion upwards
No,
through the building
absolutely not.
to get all
Absolutely
the
not.
core columns? Because the building had a structure of inner core columns, right? So if you had something right below it that could direct energy straight upwards and melt all the, I mean, I'm just hypothesizing.
Yeah, I believe you're hypothesizing. I'll just put it in a nutshell. The creation of a subsidence was the goal, not to blow the building up. The indication of the seismology says that there were some substantial events, including the two extraordinarily high, the 2.1 and the 2.3 events, which occurred just before the collapse of each of the towers. So the reason for setting the nuclear device off was not to blow things up, but to reduce the bedrock beneath the towers. Now, this is
Why? Why
okay.
to cover up the evidence? You're saying?
No, this is
Okay.
an animation that I produced a few weeks ago, and it was to allow the core to drop. If you look at this video here, you'll notice that the core is dropping. Oh, I'm gonna, not this one. I have to go back. Hold on. I'm gonna close this one. Okay, this is what I was looking for. This is the clip. So you can see what's happening here. I'm gonna just let you look at this for a short period of time and tell me what you see happening.
Okay. It's not playing right.
It's a loop.
Okay. No, I can't see it because it's showing me.
Oh, okay. I've got to share. I'm going to stop sharing and then somehow share this screen if I can get it up again. Oh, right.
Oh, you can just share it and click on the tab. I think it just opened another tab.
Yes. Okay. Will do. Thank you. Okay. Here's the tab that's open. I just have to get back to share with you because it is on my desktop now. Oh shit. Where are you now? There you are. Luckily, I can choose between the share screen. Yeah, every time I share a screen, it's got to, here we go. Hopefully it'll be playing for you. Yeah, I'm a novice at this too, so.
No worries.
And there are links to nuclear excavation technology. There's links to Project Plowshare, which was a project in the United States back in the 40s and 50s to harness the nuclear, essentially beat the nuclear weapons into useful, peaceful devices that could be used to do this sort of work. And I can email these animated GIFs to you if you want at some point. I should get your regular email address if I don't have it already too, Kingsley.
Sure, it's Kingsley9@hotmail.com. Okay, so let me
Kingsley
just look.
9
Yeah, KINGSLEY 9@hotmail.com.
at Hotmail. Hold on a second.
Yeah. Artist's interpretation of thermonuclear explosion beneath tower to produce subsequent crater. Okay, so your hypothesis is that this nuclear explosion was done right under the tower in order to do what exactly?
Okay, in order to produce a substance, something that the core, oh shit, we're running out of time, so we might have to, we can restart this. We have another half hour approximately, so I'm gonna just close this for now. This last frame here shows the descent of the core of the tower, and I wonder if we can get this, whether this will show up. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's on the same page. So this is a clip of what occurred just prior to the explosive top-down dismemberment of the building. You can see that the smoke is still gently escaping from the building. There's no signs of explosives whatsoever up there right now. However, you notice that the corner is slipping. I'm going to point out the corner. And
yeah,
also,
I've seen this video. Yeah, this is very interesting that somebody captured this.
Yeah, well, I've got the whole video clip too, but there's no reason to go to it except to show what happens right after this time, which is the explosive dismemberment from the top down of the building. So my allegation is that whatever occurred down below occurred a number of seconds before this occurred, and its purpose was to create a subsidence.
Okay, I'm sorry, Lawrence. When you say subsidence, what do you mean by that?
Okay, a subsidence is, have you ever watched videos of the nuclear test sites in Nevada?
Yeah.
Okay, what happens In many cases, depending on the depth, all the configuration of the test is that a crater will be formed, and that is called a subsidence crater.
Okay.
So this is my artist rendering. I think there are 13 frames going from
Yeah.
initiation. Again, it's an artist rendering. There's nothing proper in the timeline or the temperatures, but it's just to imply that there was an event and it caused a lot of vaporization of material, reduction of the material, allowing when it started to cool, when it's after the initial reaction, it's called the collapse of the crater and chimney. We can
Yeah.
go back up to, okay, we're good here. This is what I consider to be, excuse me, come on down. This is
Even worse.
this is in the location of the South Tower, Kingsley.
Yeah.
This used to be flat bedrock, essentially flat bedrock, flattened bedrock, but it did not have this destroyed, crumbled rock in this location before 9/11. And again, you can see that it is a form. It does look like a crater, like a saucer. I mean, if you analyze the shadows and the formation, the way that the rock is and the way that people are sort of climbing down into it here, I
Yeah.
analyze that as a subsidence, something that went down, and why it went down, in my opinion, was to create a subsidence. So, and this shows you that moment just before the explosive collapse. I did the yellow in order to imply that there was now explosions going on up there.
Okay. 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 Okay.
A
Oh.
picture is worth 1,000 words, Kingsley. I just couldn't find a way of.
I understand now. Oh my God, Lawrence, you figured it out. That's how the goddamn building came down so smoothly.
Well,
Because
this has something to do with it. Pre-stressing the fasteners between the core. These are all applied floor trusses, and it's a small model, but I didn't want to go 110 stories.
But why does Richard not agree with this? This is a perfect hypothesis. I mean, you've literally figured out a piece of the puzzle.
Richard is very entrenched in his belief system. He's been touting thermite, nanothermite, and there's no doubt in my
Well,
mind.
Richard's an engineer. It's not about a
He's an
belief.
architect, I know. He's an
Yeah,
architect.
well, it's just I don't like the word belief in this scenario because we have to go with what our expertise are, and
He can change. He can change his story. It's I gave this to him 4 years ago, not the whole story, but in a private message on Facebook and on private emails. Richard, I have evidence. It was kind of poked.
No, because it's definitely both. You see, it's definitely
Oh yeah, it
thermite.
is both. It is both. I'm not
Because
disagreeing with Richard at all about the use of
Lawrence,
explosives.
here's what I think. I think that they had to do something like what you're presenting because this event that they planned is not like something they tested out in the desert somewhere, right? The buildings could have toppled over and
Well,
and like destroyed a whole bunch of buildings. Like
that was one of.
there could have been mistakes made during this event and exposed that this event was like, something things could have gone wrong. Yeah, so they
Kingsley,
had to have.
yeah, that's why I think that they may have done this, because the explosives that they used in the top were very effective, but pre-stressing the fasteners that connected the core column to the perimeter columns kind of gave them an extra edge that the explosives that they used would indeed dismember the building from the top down. Whereas, in my opinion, I mean, if it could have been, one of the expressions I think that was used during the Second World War and maybe the First, if you got them, smoke them. They've been wanting to do something like this with their devices for such a long time, and here was one of the greatest opportunities to prove what they're capable of as far as the peaceful use of nuclear explosions in moving Earth, in changing the surface of the Earth I mean, in a lot of cases, it can be done for increasing access. I mean, the link that I have shared, or I'll just give it to you. Look up Google Project Plowshare. or excuse me,
Plowshare.
Operation Plowshare and Project Plowshare. And that was the nail in the coffin that allowed me to go nuclear, rather than just say, well, there was an extraordinarily energetic event that occurred beneath these towers, very, very hot and very fast. And I couldn't say nuclear. I couldn't say thermonuclear until after
Plowshare.
Plowshare. Yeah. I mean, as I've suspected it for at least 12 years, and I've shared my opinion, and it's still an opinion, Kingsley, but there's all this stuff that correlates. There's all this circumstantial stuff
I,
that
I, I I have to tell you something, Lawrence. Um, I know some people in the Indian government and all this stuff, and I believe, based on my research, that there's a false flag operation being set up in India
they're
right
set
now.
up all over the world. COVID, as far as I'm concerned, is a false flag operation.
Yeah, Richard alluded to it, and he was pushed out of his organization. I told him straight up that his organization was infiltrated, and somebody pushed him out because they can't afford for a guy like him, who can get 3,500 architects organized, to say this and be taken seriously. So they pushed him out, and he, of course,
He's doing well considering. I love
yeah, no,
Richard.
he was absorbed into the 9/11 lawyers. I mean,
Yeah.
look, Richard is the tip of the spear, whether we like it or
Oh,
not.
he's a force. He's a force.
Yeah,
But he and Gene Laratunda kind of ambushed me. I was on his show. You saw me on his show. You saw
yeah,
the
yeah.
presentation. At the end, he just brought the whole thing out from deep in the bedrock and said, "Well, it could have been, it would have been 100 times brighter than the sun." He's looking up in the sky, and I'm saying to myself, Richard, oh my God, you did not hear a word of the presentation. The whole thing is underground, and I didn't want to embarrass him on his podcast
No,
by challenging him.
Richard is like Wolverine from the X-Men. He's in the battle for so long, and he's inundated with so much information. Like, I've talked to him a few times, and he looks like he's just at it all day, thinking
Yeah,
about this. And you'll see pictures of him on the beach once in a while with his new wife.
on
But
horses in the field.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean, even in those pictures, he looks like he's thinking about 9/11. I'm like,
yeah.
dude,
Well,
unplug for a second.
I wake up in the
Go
morning
for it.
before I go to sleep. It's totally in my presence. It was in my
Yeah.
presence before 9/11. In the morning, I'll share this with you real quick. I was flying a flight simulator program, and I decided to take off in New York, and there were these two things standing up in the distance that way over in the distance. And I started flying towards them with this aircraft, and they kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until I started flying between them. Eventually, I started flying this Canard, a small, very maneuverable, nice, sporty little aircraft. I started flying it into the buildings, crashing this aircraft into the